With your latest album, Plague Angel, you changed the lineup. Longtime members Be War on bass and vocalist Legion were out of the picture. How come? And how did that affect the band?
I mean, when you work together for so many years, you change a lot as a person and what you want to do musically and everything. And we just came to a point where we want to do different things. So they decided to step out of the band because also I want people in the band that are 100% dedicated to what we're doing and the musical idea we have and so on. So it was a natural progression for them to get out of the band.
Do you miss playing with the old lineup?
No, not at all. Actually, I would say that the change has been very positive for the band. I mean, we got some fresh blood and it feels really exciting to work again, and for me it's perfect, I don't miss it all, the old lineup. I think we're stronger than ever right now.
How did you find the new members?
For example, Devo, who joined us now on bass, was earlier in the band from like 92 to 94 when he was our second guitar player. And he went out to the band, I think it was like summer 94 or something, and we started to talk a lot during the later years and started to share a lot of ideas and things like that. So it was kind of a natural thing for him to join the band again. So it was very smooth, but he joined us now as a bass player, which is a very competent bass player as well, and so on. So it works really well. And when it comes to our vocalist, Marcus, I was familiar with his earlier work. He's a vocalist and such things. So when I knew I was going to change vocalist with the band, it was only one vocalist that I was really interested in having in the band. And so I called him up and we had a talk and also shared a lot of ideas and visions for what we could do together. So he just joined the band, and on that way it is.
You've been in the band for 2 years now. How do you think it has worked out so far? Has it been as you expected?
Pretty much, yeah, it's been as expected, as planned.
But I mean, did you have any doubts about becoming a member or not?
There were some doubts at the beginning, yeah, but after sitting down with Morgan and the others, talking things through, I was soon convinced.
What about the cover of the album? Can you tell me anything about its meaning or symbolism?
The cover of the Plague Angel album is actually a photo of a statue made by an artist during the Baroque era called Andreas Schlüter. He was a German that was also very active in Sweden, but the statue we used on the album cover is done in a church in Berlin, Germany. And we think, you have the picture of death seizing a little child, which I very much think reflects the spirit of the album and what it's all about,
What inspired you to write an album such as Plague Angel?
What really inspired us for that album, I would say that really no other music had a really big inspiration for us. We were more inspired by things as, what should I say, paintings, sculptures, things like that.
Do you have any examples?
I can say some things that really inspired me personally for that album. I would say, for example, a painting like The Triumph of Death by Bruegel. That's been a real impact on the creative process on the whole album. And also like a German artist called Albrecht Dürer. He did, for example, a thing called The Four Murder Angels. And that's the kind of things that creates music in our head. Also, for example, an old Swedish movie like The Seventh Seal, things like that. That's really have a big impact on the writing process, more than any other music or anything else really.
There has always been a unique Marduk sound, and in my opinion it has changed somewhat with a rather drastic lineup change. Is there an ambition to break that pattern, or do you work to maintain the Marduk sound?
Not at all. What was going on in the band before I joined, and whatever standards and norms that were used then, belongs to the past, and is simply not of my concern. I mean, with all the lineup changes, as well as added factors, Marduk has been through a more or less necessary transformation. A rebirth, if you will. You saw it on Plague Angel, and you will see it even more as time passes, starting with the next album. But, change or no change, I think the Marduk sound you speak of always will be there.
On the Digipack version of the album, an old skull is pictured, the same as you're using as a backdrop. Where does it come from, and what's the story behind it?
Actually, that skull was painted on a coffin, which you can see in Stockholm. It belonged to the Swedish Field Marshal Lennart Torstensson. He died in 1651, and during that time period, they, not always but occasionally, they painted the skulls on the coffins like that. And I was really impressed by the look of it, and I took a photo of it actually a few years ago, and it kept stuck in my mind. And I was so impressed by it that I later on decided to use it for the Digipack version and also as the backdrop, as you mentioned. And it really reflects the power of our music, I would say,
Is the coffin on public display?
Yes, it is.
On Plague Angel, some lyrics deal with the Third Reich history. In some people's eyes, that's very controversial. Why did you choose to sing about such sensitive topics?
I mean, other people's limitations are not our limitations. I mean, I found that whole historical time period fascinating, so fascinating that I decided to write a few songs about it. I mean, we've done that before as well. When it comes to the particular Plague Angel album, we did, for example, a song called The Hangman of Prague, which deals with the rights protector of occupied Czechia. And it's just an objective story about the historical happening, no big deal to me. I mean, you gotta be able to sing about historical happenings. That shouldn't be any problem. I mean, some people will always react, but it's really stupid, you know. And I don't care.
Have you had any problems with the media about that?
We have a problem with more or less every release we ever done, but I don't really care. I mean, as an artist, it's more important for me to do what I want to do than what, you know, journalists and the media control what we do. And I mean, when it comes to that specific time period, I mean, it's just an objective description of a history, so it's no big deal to me.
Okay. What about new material? What can you tell me about the next Marduk album?
We just right now started to work hard on the album, and we completed a few songs. We have a lot of ideas for it, and we will take our time to do it. We'll spend some months in the studio. You know, usually we record very fast in the studio, but this time we're going to try to stay a bit longer to get everything in a very specific way. We have a lot of ideas, so we're going to work on it for a long time. We're in no hurry to have it out, but it's going to be something really specific for sure, something really magnificent.
How is a Marduk song made? Do you follow any specific patterns when you create new material?
No, not at all. I mean, we all work with the music and the lyrics as well. And I mean, somebody comes up with ideas. Sometimes you have a few riffs, you have a title, you have a lyric line. It could be whatever, you know. We don't work after any patterns whatsoever. We just let the creativity flow, and it turns out the way it does.
You've been reissuing some of the old albums. How come?
Yeah, I mean, we had problems with all our record labels in the past because more or less they all ripped us up. So we had the full copyrights to all our old albums. We decided to have them reissued, you know. Simple as that.
There have been so many highlights in your career. What would you say is your greatest achievement?
It's hard for me to say because I don't really think in that way. I mean, we always work and do albums and we're thinking about, when we've done an album, we already think about the next one, so we don't really sit down and reflect over it. I mean, I'm very proud over all our achievements, and all our albums and all our tours mean something specific for me, so they all represent, what should I say, where we were standing at that time period, you know, so I'm proud of everything we have done, and that's the way it is.
You've been around since the very beginning of the black metal movement. Is there a big difference between the scene of today and back then?
Yeah, of course, there's a big difference. I mean, during the early days, I would say it was not that many bands. I mean, you were in contact with so many bands around the world. It was a very little scene, but I would say very good connections between the bands. But I would say that the scene more or less exploded, which is both positive and negative. I mean, a lot of crap bands get blown out of proportion, which they don't really deserve and things like that. But I don't really care. People can do whatever they want. We do what we do, and that's what matters to me, you know.
What can you tell me about the next album? Are you working on new material?
We are constantly working on new material, and I think at the moment we have the skeletons of about 4 or 5 new songs, and of course tons of ideas that are waiting to be put together into brand new judgments and curses. But I think this time we have a much clearer image of how we want the final result to turn out, and I can say with confidence that this time you will see Marduk at a whole new level, a higher state.
On Plague Angel, you changed recording studio. After recording numerous albums in the Abyss, you moved to the local and darker studio. How come?
I mean, we recorded in the Abyss studio like 4 or 5 albums, and when we did all these lineup changes and so many things happened within the band, we also decided it was time to move on and do something different with the studio thing. So, I mean, we were really satisfied to work in the Abyss with Peter. I mean, he's always been a good friend of the band, and but it was time to move on. Maybe we thought that the last album we did, The World Funeral, sounded a bit too digital and clean. Now when we had the new lineup and everything, we wanted to have a whole different, should I say, soundscape or whatever, something completely different, you know. So we decided to record in our hometown in our bass player studio. It was a very different experience to record in your hometown and do it over a longer time period. So we just wanted a completely different sound picture. So it was a natural thing to change studio, to not get stuck in a certain pattern, to always record in the same studio. So.
Are you satisfied with the result?
Yes, I am. I thought the sound we have on Play it really reflects the spirit of the creative process and the whole atmosphere, you know, of those songs. You know, it really reflects in the production.
Marduk has been touring a lot since the very beginning, while many black metal bands choose not to tour at all. Why is that the case?
First of all, regarding touring, I think that a lot of bands choose not to tour because of their own incompetence, that they cannot play their music well enough live because they're more or less studio bands in that way. And some do it of rather different reasons. I mean, it's up to everybody, I don't care, but I mean, when it comes to Marduk, I believe that our music was meant to be played live to get the full aggression right in your face. I mean, even though it could be probably it sounds a bit untight or whatever, it's still something special to get everything at once right in your face. It's still a special kind of aggression and feeling, I would say. The same thing with me. Even when you were younger and listening to albums, you know, it's always one thing to hear it on an album, but it's always one different thing to see it live, to get all the power right in your face, you know.
Do you reflect a lot upon the old times, I mean, with the old scene?
Not really. I mean, things change, people come and go. I mean, during the years I've seen so many big-mouthed bands come and go, you know, I don't really care. We have stood the test of time and we're here to stay, and that's what matters to me, you know. I'm driven by my own vision, nothing else means anything to me.
Is there a special Marduk album that you are more proud of than of the others?
No, not really, because as I pretty much mentioned before, they all represent where we were standing at a certain time period, and I'm as proud as all of them. And I mean, at different times they all mean something different to me, but overall I'm as proud of them all. They all mean so much to me.
How about future plans? Do you have any particular future plans with Marduk, aside from recording a new studio album?
We got a lot of plans coming up, both when it comes to recording new albums and other stuff, and also when it comes to touring. We got a lot of different plans, and we're working on so many different things, but I don't want to say too much about it because we don't know yet how it will turn out, so time shall tell about that.
Anything?
No.